We also test the gluteus medius muscle from the opposite side. Push up. Middle part. Push up. Rear part. Push up. Front part. Also weak. And in this case, we also remove the trigger points. Here's another way to remove it. That is, we position the leg in such a way that the muscle doesn't get tense. You can put a pillow here, for example. And we remove the trigger point. This is a more painful method. This is a less painful method. So, you can suggest it. Some people want it one way, others want it another. Lee asks, "Nice, nice?" He asks, "Nice or not nice?" You see, you still have to hold a lot on your shoulder here. Later, you'll have to treat yourself. So the price will include the cost of your own treatment. And in the same way, we assign an exercise for the rear portion. Hold on with your hands. All right, go ahead. Lift your top leg up and lower it down. I noticed that almost everyone has a weak front part. It's a short step. Because, well, Well, what does the gluteus medius do? Well, it does this movement, of course. But how often do we actually make this movement? We very rarely make this movement. Why do we need it? It is needed specifically to stabilize the pelvis while walking, so it doesn't wobble like this. And why does the front portion atrophy? Because the leg is not in the same position as it is during walking. So, these two portions are working, but the front portion is not working. Because the gluteal muscle usually doesn't work well. There's no impulse. So, it's not involved. The pelvis is in this position. The person's steps are too short. So, we give an exercise for this muscle. So he starts doing them. We need to stretch the oblique abdominal muscles on this side. We can do this simply by applying pressure across the muscle fibers, for example, in this position, lying on the side. That means we're not working on the attachment points anymore, but on the muscle core itself, across the fibers. Or fascial, if it's painful or ticklish there. We use these fascial techniques. Or sit down and let your legs hang over there. Put your arms here. We use a technique similar to the fascial one. Here, we fix the muscle and make a movement. We turn the person. So, under our fingers, the muscle adhesions are being stretched. This is a quicker way to do it. And you can do the same thing with a special device that provides this kind of effect. With a percussor. So, this is the plan for working with the muscles. So, this should be done longer until the muscle returns to normal. So, not like I just did for a few seconds, but maybe for about a minute. You might have to repeat it once, twice, or 3 times, depending on the procedure. Alright, now we've worked on the muscles that stabilize the pelvis, the ones that stabilize the lateral displacement of the pelvis. There's also pelvic rotation. So much time goes into working on the pelvis, right? Now, why does pelvic rotation happen? It's an anterior or posterior tilt of the ilium. This happens due to an imbalance of 2 main muscles, the gluteus maximus muscle and the rectus femoris muscle. Together, they sort of regulate the position of the pelvis in this plane. If the gluteus muscle weakens while the rectus femoris is normal, the pelvis will tilt forward. If it's the other way around, the gluteus remains strong and the rectus femoris muscle weakens, the pelvis tilts backward. So this is what rotation means. Lie down. To check this, we test these muscles. We're testing the rectus femoris muscle. Push up. Good. Push up. Also good. But we have this shift in the pelvis, so it can't be okay. The kneecap can sometimes get stuck, causing issues. And that's why we'll create additional strain on the rectus femoris muscle. We'll bend the knee a little, which means we'll stretch the kneecap ligaments, and in this position we'll make the test. Push up. And to the window. Everything is fine here. So we test in different positions. Up again. Up again. Everything is fine here. Well, just to make sure that everything is really fine. Up again. Here, we identify the rectus femoris muscle's weakness. So if we test in this position when there is no load on the patellar ligaments, push up. Everything is fine. Everything works. If we create a little more tension in the tendon around the kneecap, up. Weakness and pain appear immediately. Up, but otherwise very strong. Why is this dangerous? During normal walking or everyday activities, this doesn't pose any threat. We found that there is a weakness in the rectus femoris muscle related to the fixation of the kneecap. Why is this dangerous? It's dangerous because with any additional physical activity, for example, when climbing stairs, let's say even a step, well, usually not just a step, but a bit more, where this kind of movement is used, it can cause problems. So any movement that involves this kind of knee bending will be traumatic. For the muscle itself, for the hip joint, for the knee joint. So, for example, if you decide to lift a barbell or climb up 3 steps at a time, it can be traumatic. At that moment, you can get injured. You can solve this problem by removing the fixation of the kneecap. To do this, you need to relieve the muscle hypertonicity. These ones here. The vastus femoris muscle, medial, lateral. So you just need to relieve the tension around the kneecap from all sides so that it can start moving freely. Let's roll it up. Let's pull it up. So we need to make the kneecap's movements freer. To do this, we need to relieve the tension in the tissues around the kneecap. For this, we relieve the tension in the vastus medialis muscle of the thigh. This can be felt by palpation, these areas here. Muscle tightness. Because as long as these structures remain shortened, it will rub too much against the femur. And the tendons right here at the bottom. Here you can even move the kneecap to one side and the tendon to the other side. Also to remove trigger points. There isn't here. The tendon is intact. This one is healthy, a healthy leg. And under the kneecap itself, inside and outside. That is, kind of behind it. We move it slightly to the side and we can get under it. You can also feel some areas of tightness here. Another method is physiotherapy, using a laser. Not surgical, but therapeutic, meaning these adhesions are removed with a laser. Okay, push up with your leg. So, once again, we apply additional load. Push up. Now it's able to contract. Any pain? No. Push up, so it's already better. What else do we prescribe? We prescribe that he does this procedure himself. That is, at home, he should put his foot on the couch and move his kneecap outward and inward by himself. And do the same thing around the kneecap, so that he finds a trigger point or just massages everything around the kneecap himself. That is, we found that there was a dysfunction of the rectus femoris muscle, and we fixed it. Now let's look at the gluteal muscle. Let's test the gluteal muscle. To do this, we bend the leg so that the angle is less than 90 degrees to eliminate tension in the hip extensor. Lift it up, push your leg up, testing. Good. Also up. That works too. We just tested this part of the gluteus maximus muscle. Now let's test the part that attaches to the sacrum. Shift it sideways, push up. Upward again. That's good too. Bend it a bit. Bend. Push up. That's good. So, there are no problems with the gluteal muscle. The gluteal muscle is working. So now we've fixed all the muscles that could have caused an imbalance in the pelvis. But that's not enough. We also need to check whether the issues in these muscles have led to impaired mobility of the sacroiliac joints. Whether hypermobility has developed there, or on the contrary, fixation. Lie on your back. Two ways to determine it. The first way is with therapeutic localization. That is, we take any healthy muscle, push upward to the side. Well, the one that's easy to test that reacts quickly. We tense this muscle. Let's take the broad fascia. We take the patient's arm and place it on the sacroiliac. Push to the side. It shows weakness. That is, when in contact with the sacroiliac joint, weakness appears on the left side. We do the same thing on the other side. Take the arm, but ideally like this. We place it right on the joint, right here. Let's test again. Put the other arm down, the other one down. Push up, up. Everything is fine here. The first method. And right away, we check the inhale and exhale. So, we just determined that something is wrong in this sacroiliac joint. Now we can determine what kind of fixation is there when it happened, meaning in which phase of movement this joint got stuck. We can determine this using the inhale and exhale. So during inhalation, the sacrum makes certain movements and the ilium. So, what happens during exhalation? The oblique abdominal muscles contract during exhalation. the sacrum moves backward, and due to the tension of the oblique abdominal muscles, there is an approximation. This is the movement of the iliac bones. That is, they move slightly upward and inward. The pelvis opens downward on the exhale. On the inhale, on the contrary, the oblique abdominal muscles relax, and the pelvis opens to the sides. So, it's this kind of movement. Inhale like this, exhale like this. Place your hand again on the sacroiliac joint. We identify the weakness, the muscle that isn't working. The other arm goes down. So, when we do therapeutic localization, it's better for the person to touch one part of the body with their hand. Take a breath, hold it, and push. Exhale, hold it, and push. See, we get an increase on the inhale. What happens on the inhale? On the inhale, the pelvic bone moves like this. On the inhale, the pelvic bone shifts outward like this. Your oblique muscle relaxes when you inhale. It allows this area to move out. And on the exhale, see, your oblique contracts. It pulls upward. It lifts us up. So, we get an increase on the inhale. That means, first of all, we should perform the manipulation on the inhale. And secondly, we had this weak muscle here, the rectus femoris. So, we need to turn the pelvis this way. We do this on the inhale. This is the first way, as you can see. The second way, lie on your belly. The second way that you can use or show. Well, there are people who, therapeutic localization is like how I did it. For example, how do I do it? I don't explain to them that we're doing therapeutic localization. I just take their arm and put it here, that's all. I just test. They don't need to know what to do. The second way is we also take any muscle. Push. We just do mechanical irritation of the joint. Don't push. Push. Same thing, you see. So here you irritate it yourself without. Here, at the same time, you see there's also treatment. In short, I just had it now. Well, that is mechanical pressure. And it got weaker the first time. I just pressed a little harder now, and his block woke up. Right. Well, I just pretended what you have to keep doing it. Lie on your side facing me. So now we need to move the iliac bone right here and do it as you inhale. Lie a little closer. Bend this leg, straighten the other one. I mean, just like this. It doesn't really matter how you position your arm here. Actually, it's even better like this, yeah? But it's up to you. It's just uncomfortable for me like this, but this way, there's less tension in these muscles. I think it's easier to do, it's just more comfortable for me this way. Here. And now we need to turn this way and do it as we inhale. You can, for example, do the same thing with a straight leg. Inhale, exhale, and inhale again. Well, I mean, before this, we had... Here. Now his task is to do the exercises at home. All these exercises that I showed are for the gluteus medius muscle on both sides, for the kneecap, and for the oblique abdominal muscles. Then We will need to teach him to walk in such a way that he starts using these muscles while stepping, because his situation is not due to not training them, but because he wasn't using them while walking. So, he needs to increase his step length, that's all. Now he needs to maintain all of this, and we can assign him a few days. Lie on your back. In addition to muscle exercises, we can also assign him 2 more exercises. The first one is to increase the mobility of the sacroiliac joint. That is, we have just put it back in place for him. It will move at the correct angle. Now he needs to slightly stretch the ligaments that are around this joint. Pull the leg toward the shoulder with one hand. With one, because if he does it with both, he'll pull it here, and the angle will be different. About 10 movements like this. Here, the sacroiliac joint is being stretched, but now at the correct angle. You can't prescribe this until everything has been corrected, because there simply won't be any effect. On your own, it might. Your pelvis was shifted over there, remember? Just in case, your pelvis might still adjust itself for a few more days. I mean, the joint is still being mobilized. And this joint too. But even this fixation is enough for it. That is the mobilization of this joint. And this one was the weak one, right? The gluteus medius. It was weak on both sides. So why did we do it on one side now? Because we performed the manipulation on this joint. We just worked on the joint. We performed the manipulation on this joint. We moved it here, we did the rotation here. He just imitates the same thing. We did it here, like this. Like this, yes. Just the same thing.